I'm Glenn McGuinness, and this is Outburst. On the program, should some COVID-19 restrictions be reinstated?
Personally, I think a lot of the COVID restrictions never made any sense.
Some, but not all.
I actually live in Alberta, and they're pretty heavy there, so yeah.
A very complicated issue, no easy answers.
With the majority of Canadians now fully vaccinated and some public gatherings in different jurisdictions in this country now allowed at full capacity, including here in Ontario, there are still some alarming COVID-19 numbers popping up in this country, particularly in Alberta and Saskatchewan, where the healthcare system in both provinces are now under an enormous strain. While many of us are happy and relieved to see things loosen up, if these numbers continue to be a danger, should we begin to shut some things back down just for safety's sake? Our question.
Should some COVID-19 restrictions be reinstated?
I think it depends on the area. It depends on what the cases are showing, and if it's increasing, they should do more, and if it's decreasing, should probably do a little less, or at least go based on what the science tells you.
I think we're reaching that stage in the pandemic where you really have to look at the circumstances locally and adjust the restrictions to what the situation is on the ground there. Like a blanket province-wide restriction really never made sense from the get-go, in my view.
Yeah, I think it should be reinstated because it just makes me feel safer. I traveled to Alberta last month in August, and I went to Banff, and I just didn't feel safe there because I feel people were not wearing masks. While I come back here in Ottawa, I felt so much better because just like going indoor and people are wearing masks give me a reassurance.
Personally, I think a lot of the COVID restrictions never made any sense, and so to reimpose ones that never made sense seems kind of bizarre, but if we have a huge outbreak, like a fifth wave or something, it seems reasonable to revisit the decisions.
I believe that they probably should be reinstated in some places. The problem that I'm having the most with Ontario in particular, I own a barber shop, and during COVID, I had to be closed. And now that COVID is over and we have the vaccine passports, I, as a non-essential business before, am now not allowed to ask for a vaccine passport for a haircut.
For sure in the other provinces where it's a problem, but over here we're pretty much, we did the right thing so far, and the thing is to continue wearing our masks. Should wear a mask and just go about the normal business, but still keep your distance and wear the mask.
Definitely. Increase what you can, because it's getting ridiculous. I don't want it back here. So fix the mainland.
Well, actually in our place in Mariestown, before they have removed the mask, but we are happy that they put it back because it's really for the safety of everyone.
To me, it seems like, the people are just going to do what they want to do anyway. You can put in the rules and regulations, some people are just not going to follow them. I mean, I just can't understand why we still have a lineup of people waiting to get vaccinated. It's been on the go now for about a year. And now it seems to me that people got to get sick for other family members to realize how important the vaccine is.
Yes, absolutely. There's a lot of vulnerable citizens in the province, and the steps should be put up and everybody get their vaccine. Yeah, it's really important because, we got to look after our seniors in the province.
Well, it all depends on what kind of a society you want, I suppose. What are you going to do next if you don't wear a mask? Put a little mark on you and just pick you out from the crowd? I don't know. Very complicated issues, no easy answers, for sure. Absolutely difficult. But you don't want to get into a fascist state where the government tells you what to do and what not to do. That's the issue. But by the same token, refusing to get a vaccine maybe puts other people in danger. So, tremendous amount of ignorance about the subject out there. Tremendous amount of ignorance. Most people don't know what they're talking about.
Yes, I think so. Yeah, some, but not all, I guess.
You want to tell me a little bit about that?
Well, I feel, yes, we should wear the masks, and I think some places should have restrictions, like number of people eating and that sort of thing.
I think that the public health officials are doing a great job at the moment, and I think that it requires a lot of specific look at the data to really make decisions. So I think that they're doing a fine job at the moment.
No. Because they're not working. Okay. I mean, headline on the news yesterday was more vaccinated Manitobans are getting COVID, and the government reassures us that the vaccines are working. That makes no sense. It's an oxymoron.
Within Winnipeg, I think at this point, no. I think the measures that are in place are doing what they should be doing. But within Winnipeg, if hospitalizations and things like that get a little bit higher, then I think maybe a little bit more restrictions should be put in place.
Most importantly is the people, those who are anti-vaxxer, you know. We have to really impress on them that they're the one should be vaccinated, and unless we really impose the restrictions, nobody's going to listen, and we have to have some form of restriction, particularly to energize the anti-vaxxers.
I actually live in Alberta, and they're pretty heavy there. So yeah.
And is that a good thing?
Absolutely, they're out of hand there for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you expand on that a bit more?
I feel like we didn't take the proper precautions when we needed to, and so it resulted in a much bigger effect than it should have been, or could have been.
For me, yes, I do, just because the numbers are starting to go on the rise, and not just in our province, but other provinces, and yeah, sure, like, you know, it's an inconvenience for everybody, but it's a safety measure for all, and especially for the elderly and our children. And I mean, little things that we have to do like mask, sanitize, it's very minimal. It doesn't take much out of our time during the day. Is it inconvenience? Yes, but it's something everybody can contribute to.
Although many people will tell you they feel fortunate to live in Canada, things can't be perfect all the time, and this country has its fair share of problems and issues it has to deal with. The pandemic, of course, has made things harder for Canadians, but what do you think is the most difficult thing we have to deal with in this day and age? Our question.
What are the biggest challenges facing Canadians today?
Biggest challenges, I think a lot of businesses are hurting for it because everywhere you look there's hiring signs and there's nobody to work because the government is handing out all this money and nobody wants to work when they can sit home and just take in all this money. So the businesses are really hurting for it because they're looking for workers.
I think they need to get used to a new lifestyle after COVID, and they need to kind of live with some permanent restriction, but not these tight restriction, maybe some ease restriction. They need to live with those type of restriction. And this is a new lifestyle after COVID. I think we need to, everyone needs to do its part.
I think people having a lot of trouble with like the economic part of COVID and the pandemic, especially finding work and struggling with staffing if you're a business owner, and then providing the wages that people want these days. So I think employment and economics is probably the biggest challenge a lot of people are facing right now.
I think a lot of times it's isolation, keeping yourself sane. There's a very, very hard feeling you get when someone is so close to you but you can't visit them. Like, for example, for me now, I have family that are out in the Twillingate area in the zone with all the new cases and in Newfoundland, and it definitely is hard that somebody is so close but that you can't see them. I think that is a really, really hard, difficult thing to have to face.
That's tough. There's a lot of challenges. I think a lot of financial challenges are probably one of the biggest ones right now. Just getting the right type of help for the right type of people. I know there's a lot of programs right now in place, but they're not the solution that is needed. There has to be different programs to help different families because we're so diverse.
In my opinion, the biggest challenges that I'm facing as an employer is finding qualified employees. The other biggest challenge, I think, is the fact that the CRB and the Canada Recovery Benefit has basically more or less replaced a lot of wages for a lot of lower earning people, waitresses and stuff like that, and now they just don't want to get a job because they can make more money sitting at home.
The drug problem, that's a big problem for kids. Something should be done about it. Too many lives are lost for stupid reasons, like we don't put enough emphasis on the problem, and we seem to have a blind eye on it. So yeah,
we've had enough, unfortunately. You know, when I think about it, my parents grew up during the Depression and World War II, and they didn't know when those things were going to end. But, you know, they had to put up with those conditions anyway. This is not going to last as long as the Depression or World War II, so we need more patience.
Well, clearly the pandemic is still a challenge. Healthcare spending seems to be, you know, tied to that. I think that's something that surfaced as a result of the pandemic, and that we have a lot of work to do in that area. And climate change, definitely, if not number one, it's, you know, heading up to the top of the charts with a bullet, right? That is a serious challenge that Canadians are facing.
I think healthcare is the biggest challenge, and then economy too. Both are a big challenge. Education is going on, it's okay, but healthcare and economy is the most important.
The economy for sure rebounding after all this. It's going to take a while.
And the continuing disparity of income between the haves and have-nots, you know. And our healthcare system is really falling apart, but it is doing the best, and it is much better than many other advanced countries, you know. But still, it needs a lot of fixing, housing, poverty, all these things, you know.
There's a lot, I would say. Racism, that is a huge one. I would say safe back-to-work practices for women who have children or finding childcare.
I think the biggest challenges is basically getting all the businesses back on even keel, trying to keep the debt load of every individual down.
Many people without job, or many people afraid for the unknown future. So I think this is the biggest challenges.
Our generation's okay, but the future generations, I don't know how it's sustainable. It can't be. You wouldn't run your household the same way the government runs its household. So I think we need to turn that trend around.
COVID for sure. I would think that's on everybody's first and foremost. And how it changes, not even daily, but hourly. Individuals that have children and have to, you know, balance work life, home life, daycare life, then COVID.
The fact that people just don't want to get vaccinated. And that's a big barrier in moving forward, is people not wanting to get vaccinated.
Well, obviously the pandemic's number one, and the second I think is, I guess, how are we going to pay for all this when it's all over? Assuming it's ever going to be over.
When was the current Conservative Party of Canada formed? 1995, 2003, 2015. 1995, 2003, 2015.
I have no idea. Maybe A, 1995. We're going to go with 2015. 2015? 2015.
I'd say 03. I think it was 95. 95.
Ooh. 2003? About 2003.
2003.
Correct. You may high-five your wife. Thank you.
You're welcome.
After years of a fragmented political right, which many felt helped elect Liberal governments in Ottawa, a move was underway to unite Conservatism in Canada. In 2003, after closed-door meetings between Stephen Harper, leader of the Canadian Alliance Party, and the Progressive Conservatives led by Peter MacKay, resulted in an agreement in principle to unite under one political banner. The Conservative Party of Canada was created. Although the plan did have some opposition, the merger was ratified in December of 2003, making the new party officially registered with Elections Canada. In March of 2004, Stephen Harper was elected as party leader.
Government spending, especially since this pandemic began almost 2 years ago, has been on most everyone's radar, with the benefits being paid out to Canadians and small businesses to keep things going during lockdowns. But there are many things besides COVID-19 where people think this money should be invested. So we took to the streets to ask Canadians exactly where they think this money should go. Our question:
how should the federal government spend your tax dollars?
Should be basically healthcare and education, I think, are two of the main important things that we should be focusing on, but there can be a long debate for that.
I think a government should think about the people, their ability, and he needs to plan to protect people, their economy and their ability.
How should they spend my tax dollars? They should spend them wisely. I don't have any particular, area that they should be spending them in. But for the federal government, obviously, it's about defense of the country. It's about keeping common standards between the provinces, across the nation. So those are the things I'd be looking for.
The main responsibility, in my opinion, of government is to keep the lights on. We're talking clean water for First Nations people. We're talking about the military, police, fire and stuff. A lot of the money that is being spent, another reason why I don't particularly like the Prime Ministership of Trudeau, is he's spending money on stuff that isn't necessarily relevant to Canadians. It's not keeping the lights on.
I think we need to start directing more money to things like innovation, but also to really an overhaul of our labor practices, and certainly I've been a contractor most of the last number of years of my life and working career, and that's a very, very vulnerable position to be in. So I think we need to do something about the gig economy and making sure that workers are properly supported.
I don't have any issues with what they're doing to help everybody get through this. I think it's a crisis that we've never experienced before. So spending money to help people get through the pandemic is certainly number one in terms of priority.
I feel that it's like sooner or later some generation is going to have to foot the bill, and everybody seems to keep passing it along, but sooner or later these things will catch up with you. So I would like to kind of see the debt get under a little control, because the only other alternative is to raise taxes, and I don't think too many people want that.
More money go towards helping our veterans, healthcare definitely. I think those would be the two for me, helping out our veterans and helping out, putting more money in healthcare. We need that. We need that for our nurses, our doctors, our patients.
You can't keep on giving away all the time, because you have to have a way of managing that money, the same way I would manage my own money.
I think finding creative and inventive ways to grow our economy is definitely important. Getting good investments, trying to build, a better future. That's definitely a good place to start.
They should certainly stop promoting situations where people get paid to stay home from work. I mean, the economy really needs trouble. I mean, here in the mall today, there's not a very big crowd here. I think really there's a lot of businesses are suffering because they can't get people to work. I think we're really into a very watershed moment in our history.
Well, healthcare, I think. And here in Newfoundland, I know we have family that are nurses and are in the health care. And they're overworked, they're tired, they have families they very rarely see. And I'm certainly not in favor of sending Newfoundlanders to Alberta to help out. I think help begins at home, and we could use a little more help in our health care here. So I'd say the health care is number one.
Well, I think they're doing a fantastic job, looking after with the CERB and
help out employers, and I think if they continue to do that, we should be okay.
I mean, that's a big question. I definitely think I'm personally fairly socially liberal, and I think social programs, healthcare are really important to me. So things like that.
By getting everybody vaccinated and helping the hospitals and stuff clear up the ICUs and stuff like that. And regards to our province, I think that we should be keeping our nurses and doctors here right now until we get cleared up. Then if everything gets cleared up, why not send them to the other provinces to help out?
Right now, what would be the most important is healthcare, for sure, as always actually. So more so than ever now it's healthcare, and then I would say education would come second, because many universities have been hiking their tuitions, and that has been really affecting the students everywhere.
Into our industry, we have a lot of oil, we have a lot of natural resources, especially here in Newfoundland, that we can be using that money to honestly get to. You know, we're giving our money to countries like Saudi Arabia, who I may add is a big human rights abuser, which is not right. I think that the Liberal government currently in power can do a whole lot better in their budget.
Oh heavens, bring down the price of gas for sure, and the price of food and stuff like that. You know, it's just seems to be getting higher every day. You know, it seems like one day it's going up 4 cents, the next day it's going down 5, and then it's going up 8. You know, it's just no rhyme, no rhythm to it at all.
When an election is in full swing, whether it's on the provincial or federal level, the party leader is the face attached to the brand, and whatever he or she may do or say could have an effect on how you lean politically. But it could also depend on the party or the local candidate, no matter who's in charge. So we took this question to Canadians.
How much influence would a party leader have on your vote?
I think it would have a definite amount on my vote, because when I'm placing my ballot, I think of what the party leader and what he represents.
I think a big part. If someone is not able to articulate what they're feeling, or if they just are a generally unlikable person with a history of making uninformed or harmful decisions for the people in Canada, then absolutely I think that they, no matter what their party is representing, then I think that's something that needs to be taken into consideration.
Well, I think it's not insignificant, but I'm really more interested, I like to think I'm more interested in the policy issues themselves. So that shouldn't be as dependent on the personality or the charisma of the individual leader.
Honestly, their objectives and their motives, there's what's most important. The person doesn't matter. It's what they're going to do for us and in the future.
Well, I listen to each party and see which more tailors to like our family's needs and whatnot, and we go from there. And I make a choice, and the missus makes a choice, and yeah, I mean, I don't think there's a huge influence. It's just like I just look at what each party or each leader is willing to do for the country or for our province and stuff like that, and vote accordingly.
I gave my vote to the one whom I thought had a better vision for our future.
It does really, it does indeed.
How so?
The thing is, the people's presence makes an impression. And what is the impression that affects the leadership? And that impression affects the policies and everything one can do.
One person doesn't make the party. So I think we have to keep that in mind. And unfortunately, I think the last couple of elections has been about the person and maybe his hair. And that doesn't always make a good leader.
That's a really interesting question, because to me it's sort of like in Canada, the MP is sort of generally a foot soldier, right? What did Trudeau Sr. say at one point? Like, MPs 50 meters from Parliament Hill, they're all nobodies. And so it would have a fairly large influence, which is, if I can digress a little bit, which is sort of why I'm unhappy with the Conservatives, because I don't think O'Toole is a credible alternative to Trudeau. They're sort of a little bit in the same boat. And Trudeau, at least you know what you're getting. With O'Toole, oh. So a lot of influence, probably.
Oh, probably about 50%, I would say. But I do like to look at policy, you know, between the various parties as well.
It's no question it's going to have some. At the end of the day, you want to vote for the best person for the job. If that's someone that's an NDP, Green Party, PC, Liberal, you want to vote for the best person. But at the same time, if the platform is something you don't agree with from whatever party, then it's going to be tough to vote for that person you want to get in if you don't agree with the party. So there's no question the leadership plays a role into it.
Not a whole lot. No, I can't look at the candidates in my area, and you know, I don't really look at the leader as such.
Well, that definitely influences, for example, for federal election. The history of people's leaders talk about the COVID and what they advised, it's really important for people who wants to vote and for people who wants to make a decision. COVID is really important issue, and we cannot make compromises on that sorely. And leader needs to be careful what they are planning, what they are talking about that.
Oh, a lot. I gotta say, a lot of times I'll vote for the leader more than the party, because there are some leaders out there that there's no way I would vote for them no matter what they said. So yeah, very, very high on the list for me.
A lot, because it's the person who kind of sets forth everything for the party and who they're going to choose, you know, what decisions they're going to make. So it's definitely important. But I think a lot of voters need to focus on the local people, because they do make a huge impact on what happens in your province, in your riding. But yeah, the leader definitely does make a big shift, especially in mentality about how they approach things. It really does make a difference.
Yeah, they do very much. I go for the person more than I do the party. So yes, they do impact how I vote. If I don't like the person, or I don't feel comfortable with that person, or I don't think that person will do what I want, I'm more for the person than the party.
Yeah, pretty big. It's pretty important, definitely. I think that the party leaders are the face of the image of the party and their platform, and I think that the party leader has a huge impact on how things go for the party. Yeah. And influence on my vote too, I guess. Yeah.
Thanks for watching this episode of Outburst on CPAC. If you have any comments about this show or any other show, you can find us on social media. You can also find us on our website at www.cpac.ca. I'm Glenn McGuinness, and on behalf of my colleagues at the Cable Public Affairs Channel, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.